Something that a lot of right-wingers have been mentioning during interviews with me about the economy and unemployment and labor is, hey, David, you're ignoring the fact that the labor participation rate is really, really low. And I got an email from a viewer saying, hey, David, will you please address the Republican Party's labor participation rate talking point? I just finished watching Bill Maher, and he talked about the hundreds of thousands of jobs added. And naturally, that Republican woman chimed in with the labor participation rate is at its lowest. Whenever someone uses this to attack jobs numbers, you have to remind them we are in the middle of a baby boomer generation retirement. The retirees are put on the non-working side of the labor participation rate. It is separate from the economy doing poorly. So yes, let's explore this. Republicans treat the labor participation rate as if it were sort of the line that demarcates the makers and the takers. Mitt Romney's talking point, 47% are takers, blah, blah, blah. And they constantly warn that regardless of the unemployment rate, if the labor participation rate drops, we are becoming increasingly a nation of takers. Obviously, or maybe not obviously to some of you, but it was pretty obvious to me, the right-wing talking point around the labor participation rate completely misunderstands what the statistic even tells us. People who are on public assistance are generally required to be applying for jobs. So they're counted as participating in they are labor participants, right? You're unemployed, you're receiving unemployment benefits, you are calling each week or doing it online and saying, I looked for work this week, I am a participant in the labor market. So they are counted as participating, and they might also be getting an education and then are counted as not participating. And we've talked about that. If you're retired or in school and 18 or older and not even looking for a job, you are not in the labor participation, counted as part of the labor participation rate. But that kind of really ignores the reality of what your place in the world represents at that time. So if you imagine for a second, you have 1,000 actively unemployed people, 1,000 people who are not working, they are looking for work, and let's say they're receiving unemployment benefits. If 900 of those individuals get jobs and 100 decide to go back to school, that drops the labor participation rate of those 1,000 people from 100% to 90%. Even though 900 people have found a job. Doesn't this illustrate, Lewis, why that talking point is meaningless to us?
I think there are plenty of talking points that are meaningless. And it just has to do with using the statistics that you want to try and use to highlight whatever it is you think you're highlighting. And I mean, this is just Republican use of language, and it's still very effective.
And it's very possible, it's even likely that as we get closer to the 2016 election, we may see the unemployment rate drop as we continue to see jobs added, net jobs added, but the labor participation rate might also drop. And it is so crucial that voters understand what that actually means. And we need to spread the message. Use the 1,000 people example. 1,000 unemployed people, 900 find a job, 100 stop looking and go back to school. The labor participation rate has dropped, but 900 more people are now working. 100 more are improving their education and skills by getting an education. How is that a worse economic situation, broadly speaking?
But that Republican who you're debating will say, David, those 100 people might just stop looking for work. They might even stop collecting benefits and not doing anything. You can't argue that those 100 people are definitely improving their lives and getting an education.
Certainly not, but at least it should show us that looking at the labor participation rate tells us very little about the aggregate position of labor within the economy, and that's the most important thing.